Shepard, I need to inform you that this video is about a game that's rated M and is like, really violent. Also, it has spoilers, so just letting you know. Mass Effect is whack. Or not. Wait, I think I delivered that wrong. With Mass Effect 4 on the horizon, I felt it to be an appropriate time to cover one of my favorite video game franchises. After all, we have no idea what sort of retcons and stretches will be made once Commander Shepard inevitably returns.
Shepard, but you're dead.
I got better.
So why not take the time now to reflect on the various companions we've spent countless hours with, arguably more than our real-life friends and or lovers. You don't understand, Garrus needs us. I don't make the rules, nor do I have any say in who my favorites actually are. It just happens, bro. And yep, I said favorite. I wouldn't really consider this list to be ranked by the objectively best companions in Mass Effect, since I feel like those companions are simply the ones given the most time. I mean, geez, Tali, I hope you're actually a good companion since you show up in all 3 games. So yeah, not the objective best. So don't get mad at me that Liara isn't on this list, because Liara isn't on this list. Don't leave, I have good opinions, I swear!
James, get on it.
Tech's not my specialty, but I'll pull a few wires, see what comes out.
I have good opinions, I swear! Number 10 is everyone's favorite Mass Effect 3 companion, James Vega. After all, spending 2 entire games getting to know and love the various alien species throughout the galaxy is only complemented by having a human marine companion. Okay, sarcasm aside, I feel like James gets way too much flack. There have been far worse human companions in Mass Effect, and I can't really say that James falls into that trap of being boring. He very much feels like the protagonist of his own story. Charming, funny, voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. How can you not like this guy? It's a good sign when a ton of memorable moments in Mass Effect 3 happen to include James. Like, remember that time he dared us to do 182 push-ups? My thumbs still hurt. He's just a good dude. And gotta say, it's refreshing to see the new guy integrate into the Normandy crew so seamlessly. Usually the human companions are like, I don't know about these aliens, Commander. And you have to be like, shut up, report to my office as soon as possible. But James can be seen chatting up the other crewmates, including Garrus, which is always nice to see. Thank you, James, for giving us more Garrus. Thank you, thank you. And to address the Elcor in the room, I did watch Paragon Lost, which was James' backstory in anime form. While it's not my favorite movie ever, I did enjoy it, and I really enjoyed James as a protagonist in the movie. So yeah, in short, an endearing companion that I always look forward to seeing in Mass Effect 3. At the very least, we can all agree that he's just the superior version of Jacob. I don't even need to read the comments to confirm that.
You know, I've just been sitting here thinking.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna be honest here. Kaden Alenko already had my approval since he shares a voice actor with another one of my favorite companions from a completely different BioWare game.
Down you go!
It's not fair, I know, but like I said earlier, I don't make the rules. But hey, let me cover my tracks here a bit. Kaden is actually really cool. For those of you who let him die in Mass Effect 1 because he isn't female, I promise you that he gets better over the course of the series. I think that tends to be ignored since he's the only biotic companion that isn't, you know, a freak.
But I'm a biotic.
Quiet you. Kaden does admittedly come across as a bit of a Boy Scout in the first entry, but the dude evolves into a full-blown Spectre by the end of Mass Effect 3. Props to him for not just riding Shepard's coattails too. While there is something to Garrus and Tali's ride-or-die attitude, I really respect the squad mates who don't have to follow Shepard and are comfortable with doing their own thing. And even though people tend to get offended that the Virmire survivors are skeptical of Shepard for a while, I found it entirely believable. Their commander comes back from the dead out of nowhere and is shown to be working with a known terrorist organization. Honestly, I'd be surprised if Kaden were totally okay with all that. Let's all keep in mind though, that to make it up to Shepard, he even invites him back to his apartment for Canadian food and chill. Class act.
Hey, I get it. You've only got one real love in your life. The Reapers. They're the only thing keeping you awake at night.
Oh yeah, now we're really getting to the meat and potatoes. Jack from Mass Effect 2 is a textbook definition of why Mass Effect companions are so beloved. They aren't just props that channel coolness. There's a legitimate person to be found. When you first meet Jack, you just spring her out of one of the most secure prisons in the galaxy. And she's huffing and puffing. Quite literally, it's kinda hilarious. at the notion that Cerberus would need her help. She curses you out and then threatens to take your ship with violent force. After an introduction like this, it's clear Jack would have no trouble following orders from Shepard, right? Surprisingly not the case. I know, crazy. Jack takes her tattoos and camps down in the engine room's basement. So even if you're interested in talking to her, you have to go out of your way to do so. From this point, you have two options. Talk to the psychotic biotic that can easily blow a 2-meter wide hole in the hull, or not do that. But considering this is Mass Effect and you can't die by conversing with a squad mate, you take that risk. Well, except for that one time, but you brought it upon yourself, let's be real. Either way, you learn very quickly that Jack is more broken than anything. She can't bring herself to care about anyone because no one has ever really cared about her. Turns out the power fantasy of being a biotic is less appealing when you don't have any loved ones or literal purpose in life. So now the ball's in your court. Do you help Jack? I mean, she might not be receptive, and she's really not all that nice. You should do it, you should do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. After giving Jack a meaningful bond either by being a good friend or a really good friend, you can see by the time that Mass Effect 3 rolls around that Jack seems to have finally made it. She looks to have found a purpose in her life by becoming a teacher at Grissom Academy. Even though it's a tad bittersweet that you can't invite her back to the squad for more adventures with Commander Shepard, you get it. She's found her place in life and you're happy for her. Besides, if you play the Citadel DLC, you get way more Jack than you bargained for, with enough innuendos to sink a space cruiser.
I'll help pop your thermal clip.
Ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
Stand in the ashes of 1 trillion dead souls and ask the ghosts if honor matters. This silence is your answer.
By the time the third game rolled around, I think we all came to the conclusion that we would never meet a Prothean. This once proud race is only survived by their enslaved, brainwashed brethren, the Collectors. The Reapers are known for being quite thorough, after all. There was no way one could just put themselves into stasis and wake up 50,000 years later, right? Right? Cut to Mass Effect 3 where one put himself into stasis and is now waking up 50,000 years later. Javik, unsurprisingly, is the most insightful source of information when it comes to anything Prothean. He completely flips the script on a race that was built up through legend. The Protheans were absolutely mortal beings with their own thoughts and ideas who weren't all that virtuous. They were just trying to survive against the Reapers, just like what we're trying to do now. Javik could have easily been the super interesting Prothean savior companion, but he's not that at all. He's quite a jerk. He served an empire that enslaved and brutalized the galaxy. He sees himself as absolutely superior to anyone aboard the Normandy, and he criticizes everything about the current cycle. To be fair, I can see where he's coming from. First of all, I'd be salty that of all the times I could have woken up over the course of 50,000 years, I landed smack dab in another Reaper genocide. Second of all, imagine knowing your races left messages and warning to those who were to come. He could rest knowing that the new species would heed the warnings and finally defeat the Reapers once and for all. Then he is told straight up, bruh, we couldn't even understand your messages. They were weird. Yeah, I'd want to throw everything out of the ship's airlock too, probably starting with myself. My favorite aspect of Javik's character is that he is a soldier. Everyone expects him to have unlimited knowledge and answers to the Prothean Empire, but all he did was just point his gun and shoot things. Those things probably being primitives, which makes things awkward considering all the primitives evolved into spacefaring races. Oops.
They used to eat flies.
Like, could you imagine if in 50,000 years, we'd be greeted by bipedal sentient lizards that could speak? Weird thought.
We're gonna destroy everything you care about.
There's only one thing getting destroyed here today, and that's you, and this place, and also your boss, and probably your entire crew. So a lot of things are getting destroyed here, actually, and all of them are yours!
For number 6, I have my favorite Krogan companion in the series, Mordrak. And before I speedrun my subscribers dropping to 0, I just want to say it. Yes, I played Andromeda. Yes, I liked Andromeda. I only ask regarding it that instead of getting your opinion from that one viral video, try forming your own opinion. I promise the game is not as as bad as you think it is. Anyway, time to justify why this old-timer is my favorite Krogan. Don't get me wrong, I love not Rex, just like all of you, but I feel like Rex has the unfortunate burden of being the introduction to the Krogan race. As a result, he can kinda come across as a bit stereotypical. Just look at him. Mercenary, salty about the genophage, awesome in a fight. In Mass Effect 3, he reaches a comfortable point in his character arc. It just takes forever to get there. Grunt was a far more interesting companion to me right out of the gate. Or out of the pod, rather. Though I do realize Grunt is kinda cheating since he feels more like a lab experiment than an actual Krogan. He just adopts their ways and learns how to integrate into the culture, finding his one true place in the galaxy. But even so, there's something about this particular Krogan grandpa that I just adore even more than the previous two. To start, I'm not kidding about his age. He's old. Over 1,000 years old, in fact. With all the battles and life he's lived, even he's surprised he somehow made it to this point. But it wasn't without cost, as you can see with his various visits to the medical wing of the ship. The dude's lost more organs and limbs than most Krogan, and most Krogan have a hobby of throwing their bodies around like literal wrecking balls. Even with his crude nature, you can easily see that Drac has a good heart. He's there to support his granddaughter Kesh, and it's so wholesome seeing just how proud he is of her. In fact, it's a pleasant change of pace that a Krogan that has been alive even before the genophage gets along with the crew so well. Keep in mind that over the years, Drac has had so many professions, quote unquote. Pirate, mercenary, soldier. This little adventure of scouting out an entirely new universe to inhabit is his idea of retirement. Glad to have you aboard, Drac. Just please don't sleep on my shoulder during the movie night. It's cute until you realize his head alone is more than 100 pounds of pure Krogan.
Amon Kira, Lord of Hunters. Grant that my hands be steady, my aim be true, and my feet swift. And should the worst come to pass, grant me forgiveness.
After mingling with the worst the galaxy has had to offer in Mass Effect 2 up to that point, Thane Krios is a refreshing mix-up. On the surface, Thane is a cold-hearted assassin with a stoic, strictly business attitude. He's essentially the frog version of John Wick, but you quickly find out that Thane is the most thoughtful, caring, and philosophical character in the series. He's been taking away from the galaxy for so long that he decides he wants to add to it instead. And what better way than to fight a group of warmongering bugs that abduct innocent people for their nefarious purposes. After all, this poor Drell is suffering from a terminal illness that will kill him in less than a year. Tends to get someone thinking about how they want to spend their life in a meaningful way. You meet him on the job.
You and I are going to...
You certainly know how to make an entrance.
And after witnessing the best facial animation in the game, seriously, why does that look so good? He joins the crew with no strings attached and at no charge. Bro, you get one of the best hitmen in the galaxy for free? That's pretty rad. And you get to talk to him whenever you want!
Later, I'd like to consider what we've already discussed.
Oh. Well, I guess I'll just go bother Garrus.
Can it wait for a bit? I'm in the middle of some calibrations.
Why does no one want to talk to me? Unlike a lot of companions in Mass Effect, Thane has a definitive conclusion even if you do everything right. But wow, the path leading there can be quite enthralling. Gotta say, the fact he goes out saving a life rather than taking one is such a beautiful way to close out his character arc. And the fact he's able to fight off a Mary Sue villain while being in the final stages of his terminal illness speaks volumes. He is a shining example of how important a good ending can be, either for a character or for a story. I won't make the joke. I won't make the joke. I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna make the joke. I'm not gonna make the joke. No, I'm not making...
We're a very social people, Shepard. We have to be, to make up for being stuck in these suits. And part of that means getting involved in each other's business.
Fun fact, if you ask a Mass Effect enjoyer what their favorite race is, and they say Quarian, Talizora is why that's the case. In terms of just looking at the game's fanbase objectively, it seems like Garrus and Tali are the two most beloved companions on average. It makes sense. Tali is there from the very beginning, giving you insight into the Quarian race and teaching you how the culture functions and behaves, all while working on finishing up her community service hours for the pilgrimage she's on. Tali is a pretty neat little companion in Mass Effect 1, but I think we can all agree that 2 is where the character really hits her stride. Now, you do see her again very early on, but she refuses to work with Shepard due to their ties with Cerberus, just like Kaden and Ashley, but it's Tali, so we forgive her. You learn that she's become quite the respected figure back at the Migrant Fleet, since she's one of the only Quarians who actually fought against Geth. Our little Quarians growing up so fast. Brings a tear to the eye. If you ask me, her storyline throughout Mass Effect is the most well told. You see her grow as a leader before your eyes, and deciding to experience a trilogy with Tali by your side the entire way? Well, that's just called having good taste. You want humor? She's your girl. You want drama? She's your girl. Tali adapts to pretty much everything like a champ, except for when you get her entire race killed. Yeah, she doesn't adapt to that one.
Shepard, excellent timing. Good to have you here.
You're back with STG.
Special consultant. Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong.
Is Mordin Solus ranked too high up on this list, especially above Tali? Nah, honestly, we're splitting hairs at this point when it comes to the quality of the companions, because Mordin also deserves your time and respect. The gimmick of Mordin is that he's a genius, a scientist Solarian who believes the need of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He'll also kill bad people without remorse, despite the fact he's dedicated his life to being a doctor. This would be a confusing conundrum if the dude didn't believe his own hype. And man, Mordin totally owns who he is. I feel like every conversation with this guy ends with you learning something profound. Or something you knew, but he just worded it in a cool way.
Life is a negotiation. We all want. We all give to get what we want.
He's just such a delight to be around. You can't have a bad day with Mordin by your side. What I like about him is that while he does technically serve to give perspective on the Solarians, you've already met quite a few by this point. Mordin's just ironing out the details and showing you what a Solarian can be at their mental peak. Another cool part to Mordin is that they tied the Genophage plotline to his character. At first it doesn't make too much sense as the Genophage was made over 1,000 years ago, and Mordin is under 40, but you quickly learn that the Genophage needs updates and patches, just like any modern video game. So essentially, Mordin made adjustments to the Genophage to make sure it's still working. Yup, the cursed method of birth control you see the Krogans trying so hard to overcome? It's all this guy. While he completely denies any notion that he's in the wrong, you start seeing him open up to the idea that it might have not have been the best thing for the Krogan. This escalates throughout the series until it finally reaches a boiling point.
I made a mistake!
It is satisfying seeing a character so certain they were in the right, having the humility to admit that they were entirely wrong. To me, that's what makes Mordin a genius, though I'm sure his various Solarian PhDs help in proving that as well. What makes Mordin unique, just like Thane and Legion, is that doing everything correctly, quote-unquote, leads to his death. You technically can save Mordin, but it's obvious the game doesn't want you to. He has practically no dialogue after the Genophage story arc in Mass Effect 3, and can't show up to the party in Citadel. He needs to sacrifice himself for the sake of saving the Krogan race, even if it means getting fewer assets in the war against the Reapers. Though it actually doesn't matter because the bonus is so small, even if you betray Mordin and make sure the Genophage remains active. Thanks, Mass Effect 3.
Do it.
I'm Garrus Vicarian, and this is now my favorite spot on the Citadel.
You know a character is legendary when you're legitimately concerned there will be backlash that he's not number 1, even when he's literally in 2nd place. For number 2, we have Garrus Vicarian, and man, just saying the name fills me with glee. Everyone knows and loves Garrus. He is your bro. He's practically the 2nd protagonist of Mass Effect. It's literally even said in-game that there's no Shepard without Vicarian. But why is Garrus so beloved? Well, being there from the very beginning helps, but it's not just that. Garrus is your ally no matter what. When nearly everyone you've known had turned their backs on you in Mass Effect 2, who is there to walk through fire with you yet again?
Shepard.
Garrus! What are you doing here?
He is a constant throughout the Mass Effect series. You meet him very early on in every entry when your team is reset, and you never have to convince him to rejoin you. Now, I think the question we should be asking is what makes Garrus different from the usual simp characters who worship the very ground you step on? It's a thing, and it gets annoying, but with Garrus, it never feels like he's just blindly following you. He asks you questions. He challenges your viewpoints. Nothing will force him to leave or be upset with you, as he always asks why why before jumping to conclusions. Heck, he sees your point of view even on Renegade. You could tell him you literally doomed an entire race for the sake of getting support, and he's just like, war sucks, bro. Garrus has had to make some morally dubious calls in his life, a lot of which you actually see, but it never feels like he's an anti-hero or anything. He's doing the best he can to deal out justice. It's just that he struggles with the concept of gray morality compared to black and white. Out of all the companions, I'd say he's the only one who matches Shepard as a true equal. It truly feels like a friendship between two of the galaxy's best. I think my favorite mission involving Garrus is his loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2. You have to help him track down the scumbag who sold out his vigilante group and got the team killed. There are several ways to deal with the traitor once you find him. Do you take him out just like Garrus wants? Do you ask him directly why he did it and if he regrets it? Do you appeal to Garrus and convince him to spare his former friend's life? They're all valid decisions, and Garrus treats them as such. And he will thank you no matter which decision you make. Again, I'd usually call a character a simp for behaving this way, but Garrus is different. I feel like this Turian could get away with murder and we'd be okay with it. Then again, he does murder a lot. I'm desensitized to violence! Yep, I'm honorable mentioning a top 10 list yet again because one of my favorite companions feels weird to include so high up on this list. You guys ever hear of Zaid Masani?
Yeah, that's me. You must be Commander Shepard. Hey, we have a galaxy to save.
In terms of static characters in Mass Effect, Zaid is the most static of them all. Careful not to zap yourself. He undergoes no character development of any sort no matter what you do. All the stuff you try to convince him not to do, he either just waits to do it later or is just like, alright, just this once. He's only a companion in Mass Effect 2 and is just kinda there for 3. And a majority of players, at least original players, might have not even met Zaid due to his status as an overpriced DLC character. But to me personally, this character is the ultimate guilty pleasure. He's just so dang cool. And that accent is iconic. Brought to us by the late great voice actor Robin Sachs. You ever see that one SpongeBob episode with the shark?
Would anyone care for a bonbon?
Same guy. Seriously, take one look at Zaid and tell me what kind of person he is. You're most likely correct. He kills people and he likes to kill people. Dude is living his best life. Respect. Oh, it's funny too because there's this plot twist that he was the original leader of the Blue Suns, who are essentially vicious mercenaries you encounter in the game. And like, yeah, surprise, surprise, he was a big deal. But I'm not necessarily shocked by this revelation. Even more hilarious is the fact that because he's such a villain, you can actually leave him to die and it's treated as a morally good thing to do. $15 well spent. Yeah, not much more to really say here. Zaid is just amazing. It sincerely hurt me that you couldn't just have him as a companion in Mass Effect 3, considering he's not all that busy and could totally join you. But I figured many more people were hurt by the fact that we couldn't use any characters from Mass Effect 2 in 3. Rest in peace to those who decided 2 was the time for romance. Fun fact, I used to make an abridged series and I essentially wrote one of the characters as a ripoff of Zaid. No joke.
Who are you? And why is your voice so awesome?
It takes two to tango, BK-201.
Funny voice.
Legion? You've been thinking about when we met?
It was highly significant. You were the first organic to openly cooperate with Geth since the end of the Morning War. We wish to ensure you are not the last.
Legion. Legion is my favorite companion in the series. Where do I even start with talking about this amazing character? Well, let's try from the beginning. Legion is a Geth. They are the main enemies in the first Mass Effect, essentially serving as a bunch of mindless robots for you to destroy. Only that's not actually the case. Inquiring more into the Geth allows you to learn that they're actually sentient. They were created as servants to the Quarians and eventually rebelled against them. This was after a Geth posed the question,
These units have a soul.
The Quarians led mass exterminations on the Geth since they feared what they had created, but that didn't go all too well. In fact, it led to a reverse extermination since the Geth decided it wasn't fair for the Quarians to commit unalive on them. The more you learn about the Geth, the more you understand their reasoning. They're the definition of the two sides to the same story argument, as the Geth sounded like ruthless monsters on the surface, but really aren't when you start questioning why they're doing the things they're doing. You might even condone them for joining the Reapers, which which is valid, but they were only doing so for the survival of the Geth species. Eventually, the faction of Geth that decided they would create their own future sent out their ultimate prototype, which was capable of conveying their ideas through human speech. After all, a basic Geth unit has like 10 megabytes of data, and this prototype had like 2 terabytes. They meant business. This prototype traveled beyond the Veil and literally followed Shepard's footsteps until they eventually found our favorite commander. Even though the prototype was perfectly fine with just being called Geth, as it was essentially just a bunch of little Geth AI programs in one body, the Normandy crew found it much more fitting, and totally cooler, to name it Legion. Cut to one of the most delightful companions in the series. Legion is a wholesome robot that wants nothing but to understand the alien races in the galaxy, while also being 6'6" and casually wielding an anti-tank rifle. It's literally hardwired to be your best friend. Just look at this guy.
Geth do not infiltrate.
You should leave your personal synthetic assistant at home.
Geth do not intentionally infiltrate.
Throughout the adventure, Legion composits more and more data until eventually becoming its own being. Legion even wears Shepard's old armor, since it used it to repair damage it received from a gunshot. When asked about why it wore that piece of armor specifically, not even it knows why. But I think we all know why. Now, when I brought up the Geth earlier, you might consider them to be the victims in the war between the Geth and the Quarians, which you'd be pretty accurate in assuming. With all their backstory and motivations, they seem like they were completely justified in the Morning War, especially since you learn they could have finished the Quarian race, but elected to let the last of their creators retreat. Fans might say this makes the Geth too squeaky clean in terms of morality, but I disagree. They've done their fair share of damage to the Quarians when they didn't need to, and human colonies on behalf of the Reapers, but who's counting? I think the moment it becomes clear that even the Geth have their flaws is when you infiltrate one of their command ships with Legion itself. Legion notes that the Geth factions do not hate each other for their decisions. The heretics who followed the Reapers split from the main group, but neither held a grudge against the other, since they knew they both had their reasons. But Legion learns on the Dreadnought that the heretics were actually spying on the main group. It can't understand why, and wonders where things went wrong with the Geth. Pretty dang sad to say the least. The only flaw with Legion that I can note is that you get him way too late into Mass Effect 2. It's the last companion in the game, and if you're doing things right, you get 2 missions with it before the end. 2. That's ridiculous.
Shepard, I can't believe you're... Get down!
Allied fire. Cover. Requesting assistance, Shepard Commander.
Now, you do see Legion again in Mass Effect 3, and don't get me wrong, Legion is great in Mass Effect 3. But dang, I wanted to spend more time with it. The part that hurts the most is that Legion will die. Yep, it's one of the only companions who dies, even if you do everything right. But here's the kicker. It's a good thing. The entire theme of Legion is learning if it actually has a soul, and it becomes more than obvious that it does the further you get. This culminates in my favorite scene in Mass Effect 3 where you have to stop the war between the Quarians and the Geth. If you do everything right, the war will indeed end. Finally, after all these years, there is peace. But Legion notes the Reaper that you guys just destroyed, it's super hype, trust me, can have its code dispersed throughout all Geth, essentially making them as smart as Legion is, giving them the understanding that Legion itself has. So Legion does what it was always meant to do, make itself the bridge between the Geth and the rest of the galaxy. And to do it, Legion sadly has to disseminate itself to make sure the code is distributed properly.
Shepard Commander, I must go to them. I'm sorry. It's the only way.
Legion, the answer to your question was yes.
I know, Tali. But thank you. Kila-sanai.
And that's it. With Legion's sacrifice, the Geth now have a future in the galaxy. It fulfilled its purpose of understanding, and in the final moments, referred to himself as I, and not we. So yeah, best character. My favorite anyway. Mass Effect is a legendary trilogy of video games that needs no introduction. I cannot recommend it enough for those of you who like good stories, or good characters, or good gameplay. It's just so good, okay? For those of you who have played the games, I ask, who is your favorite character in Mass Effect? Totes let me know in the comments down below. How can you not mention Liara? Oh yeah, I didn't mention Liara. What's up, bro? Why don't you like Liara? I don't know. I just don't like her as much as other people do. Why don't you like Liara? I mean, these are just my opinions, right? Worst video, no Liara. I love Liara.
I just don't like Liara as
Liara's
much.
the best.
I just don't like Liara.
What the heck, Liara?
I just don't like her as much as other people. I just don't.
Special thanks to my top tier patrons, Chansey and Terror XD.